Hello everybody and welcome back to the Commander Tribe Elder. Today I'm going to show one of my decks that I built. This was sort of built to go against CEDH decks. I'm sure people out there that play CEDH are laughing because they're like, oh, that's not even close to a CEDH deck. But it kind of had the concept in mind of going against those kind of decks. Is a little bit more faster paced, and it does have ways of bringing out some big bad creatures pretty quickly. The commander that I use is Magda, the Brazen Outlaw. It's a 1 and a red for a legendary creature dwarf berserker. It's a 2/1. Other dwarves you control get +1/+0. Whenever a dwarf you control becomes tapped, create a treasure token. And you can sacrifice 5 treasure tokens and search your library for an artifact or a dragon card and put that card into the battlefield, then shuffle your library. So, yeah, there's going to be a lot of artifacts, lots of ways of making treasures, lots of dwarves and ways to tap them, and then lots of big nasty things to bring out onto the board. The mana base it's basically just 34 mountains. I know I didn't do anything real special there. Usually I prefer to run 35 to 37. I've been told that's too many, and I actually cut this because this sort of is a cheaper deck. A lot of the cards that are bigger to cast, and there's quite a few of them, can either be helped out by with the amount of treasures that we're bringing out or just discarded to some of the other spells if they're too hefty to cost at the moment. So having some of the larger creatures in there really doesn't hamper you that much. Next for the ramp, there's 7 cards in the ramp. I know that some of these stats are going to be a little skewed, but I did what I did to make it go. The first one is Prismatic Lens. It's 2 for an artifact. You tap it for a colorless. You could pay 1 and tap it for a mana of any color. You really don't need to do that. It's just there because it's a 2-drop, and it helps us just right away get into it. Most of these are 1 and 2 drops. Yeah. Next is Springleaf Drum. It's 1 for an artifact. You tap it to tap, and you tap an untapped creature you control, and you add 1 mana of any color. This is cool because it not only ramps us on 2, but it also forcibly taps one of our dwarves so we can get that treasure token. Next is good old Soul Ring. It's 1 for an artifact. You tap it for 2 colorless. Next is Paradise Mantle. It costs 0, which is really cool. It costs to equip is 1. It is an equipment. Equipped creature has tap, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. This does not override Summoning Sickness like the last card does. Or, sorry, the card before Soul Ring. But still, it does help us get our creatures tapped down. Next is Mind Stone. It's 2 for an artifact. You tap it to add a colors to your mana pool. You could also pay 1, tap it, sacrifice it, draw a card. Arcane Signet, it's 2 for an artifact. Tap, add 1 mana of any color of your commander's color identity. And then Fire Diamond, it's 2 for an artifact. Tap it. Fire Diamond enters the battlefield tapped, and you could tap it for a red. Next is our removal. I don't know. The first 2 cards I've heard that these are like, those are CEDH cards, and it's like, yeah, they're a little pricey. I mean, they're like $5 and $6, maybe 8 for one. I don't think those prices have changed too much. Don't quote me, but it's like, I mean, just because it's an expensive card doesn't make it CEDH. But I've always heard the argument that, they're dead cards if they don't have their targets. And it's like, well, I have cards in here to take care of dead cards in my hand, so it's not an issue. But anyway, the first one is Pyroblast. It's 1 for an instant. You choose one. Counter target spell if it's blue. This helps us go against some of those blue decks a little bit. And then you could also, or instead, you can destroy target permanent if it's blue. The next one is basically the same. There's a small difference. It's Red Elemental Blast, counters a blue spell being cast or destroys a blue card in play. I guess one targets and the other one doesn't. Kind of weird how that works out. Next card, I'm so glad that I have another red counterspell. It's Tybalt's Trickery. It's 1 and a red. For an instant counter target spell, choose 1, 2, or 3 at random. Its controller mills that many cards, then exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile a non-land card with a different name than that spell. They may cast that card without paying its mana cost. Then they put the exile cards on the bottom of the library in a random order. Again, just another way of having a counterspell. Hopefully you don't accidentally into something. It's sort of chaos warpish, but yeah, I find most of the time it's not a bad thing to have around. That's technically, it's fine. Technically, this is usually labeled as a board wipe, but whatever. It's Vandal Blast. Destroy target artifact you don't control for 1 red mana as a sorcery, or you can overload it, which is what most people do. For 4 and a red, you may cast this spell for its overload cost. If you do, change its text by replacing all instances of target with each. So you destroy each of your opponents, or each artifact that you don't control. This is a fun one. It's kind of a protect spell, but you usually use it to, if somebody's going to hit your stuff, then you can use it to ricochet off and hit their stuff. It's called Ricochet Trap. It's 3 and a red. For an instant, it is Trap type. If an opponent casts a blue spell this turn, you may pay red rather than pay Ricochet's Trap's mana cost. Change the target of target spell with a single target. So that helps for all that spot removal. Again, protecting our creatures and blowing up somebody else's. Next is Mog Salvage. It's 2 and a red for an instant. If an opponent controls an island and you control a mountain, you may cast the spell without paying its mana cost and destroy target artifact. And last but not least, mentioned earlier, Chaos Warp. It's 2 and a red. Owner of target for an instant. Owner of the target permanent shuffles it into their library, then reveals the top card of their library. If it's a permanent, they put it into the battlefield. Most of the time, we want them to do a land, but randomness. You can't really get that all the time. Next, we have 2 board wipes. I usually, when I run board wipes, I prefer to have some of my army or my board state left intact. That's not really the case in these cases. It's kind of hard to find something that would leave creatures on the battlefield while killing everybody else's. There's a few of them out there, but these are what I put in anyway. The first one is Navinral's Disc. It's 4 for an artifact. Enters the battlefield tapped. You pay 1, tap it, destroy all artifacts, creatures, and enchantments. One reason I like this one, yes, it does kill everything on my side, but I like it. If I'm in a jam and I have my commander out, I can fetch this at the end of somebody's turn, put it on the battlefield, and then my turn comes up, untap it right away, pay for it, and then boom. And it's just great to blindside somebody with this commander. The next one is Blasphemous Act. It's 8 and a red for a sorcery. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature on the battlefield. Blasphemous Act deals 13 damage to each creature. We do have a couple creatures that could survive this. One at least, for sure. Next is our draw. This is a little light just because we're going to have a lot of treasure generation, and we are going to be picking out the particulars that we want. So drawing is not as high of a priority, but I definitely did want some in there. Plus some of our other cards are going to be draw cards also, but they give us treasures, so they're in a different category. The first one is Endless Atlas. It's 2 for an artifact. Pay 2, tap, draw a card, activate this ability only if you control 3 or more lands with the same name. All of our lands have the same name, so it's not a problem. Next is Hazoret's Monument. It's 3 for a legendary artifact. Red creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Whenever you cast a creature spell, you may discard a card. If you do, draw a card. And the next one is Collector's Vault. It's 2 for an artifact. Pay 2, draw a card, then discard a card, create a treasure token. So, again, this could have been put in the treasures, but I decided to put it as draw. You know, a lot of these could go either way. Next, I do have 2 protection spells. Might as well just throw them both out there. They're essentially the same thing. Yes, they do have their differences, but I love them both. Lightning Greaves and Swiftfoot Boots. They both cost 2. They're both artifacts. They're both equipments. Both grant haste to your creature that you equip it to. One provides Shroud, which means nobody can target, and the other one provides Hexproof, which means that just you can target it. One costs 0 to equip, one costs 1 to equip. Basically the same thing. But they're not. Next, I do have a number of spells that give my creatures haste, so that when I do bring out the big bad uglies, I can either tap or just inherently have my creatures have haste. I have 3 of those. The first one is Crashing Drawbridge. It is 2 for a artifact creature wall. It's a 0/4. It has Defender. Tap. Creatures you control gain haste till the end of the turn. So that is all creatures. Next is Anger, and as stated before, we do have a way of getting rid of dead cards in your hand, so if this is your opening hand, it's not a dud. I mean, it is, but you have ways to get rid of it. It's 3 and a red for a creature incarnation that is a 2/2. It has haste itself. As long as Anger is in your graveyard and you control a mountain, creatures you control have haste. This one I like a lot. I know he's a little bit expensive, but it's Purphoros the Bronze-Blooded. It's 4 and a red for Legendary Creature Enchantment God. It is indestructible, so this will also survive the Navinral's Disc. As long as your devotion to red is less than 5, Purphoros is not a creature. Other creatures you control have haste. You can pay 2 and a red. You may put a red creature card or an artifact creature card from your hand into the battlefield, sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step, and it is a 7/6. So this is another way, oh, I've got this really awesome creature in my hand, but, I can already see I'm not going to cast it for 5 more turns. Keep it around. You can draw Purphoros, bring it out, attack with it. It does its thing. Get rid of it. The thing is to just speed. Yes, I did think about throwing Sneak Attack into this deck. I actually got one. This came in my Eldraine booster box. Sneak Attack, it's 3 and a red for an enchantment. You pay a red. You may put a creature card from your hand into the battlefield. That creature gains haste. Sacrifice that creature at the beginning of the next end step. It's basically what Purphoros does, but the activation is a lot cheaper. This definitely could go into this deck. Take something else out. Shoot, you might even run 33 lands. I don't know. However you want to do it, but this would definitely fit very well into the deck. So, honorable mention there. All right, next. These are the dwarves that made us. That's what I'm calling it. So, yeah, it actually took me quite a while to gather an entire 16 dwarves. 15 dwarves and 1 honorary dwarf. Just because dwarves are kind of not a real popular tribe. At least they weren't before this thing came out. Anyway, the first dwarf is 7 dwarves. It's 1 and a red for a creature dwarf. That's a 2/2. 7 dwarves gets +1/+1 for each other creature named 7 dwarves you control. The deck can have up to 7 cards named 7 dwarves. So that's really cool. That's already, 7 creatures that we could have that are just really cheap to cast. They keep on building on each other. You have 3 of them out. They each get +2/+2. So good way to pile those out. The next card we have is called the 7 Dwarves. It's 1 and a red for a creature dwarf. It's 2/2. 7 dwarves gets +1/+1 for each other creature named 7 dwarves you control. A deck can have up to 7 cards named 7 dwarves. This is really cool because we already got like 7 cards in there that are really easy to cast. They're 2 each. And then, if you have like 3 of them out, then, each one gets +2/+2. Next card we have is, I'm not saying it 3 times. The next 5 cards are 7 dwarves. So after those, this was from the Lord of the Rings set. I have no idea how to pronounce his name. Golian, I believe. Dwarf Emissary. He's 2 and a red for a 3/3. Legendary creature, Dwarf Advisor. Whenever you cast a historic spell, create a treasure token. This will help because artifacts, legendaries, and sagas, which I don't have sagas in here, but there are plenty of artifacts in here, and there's a few legendaries. So every time we cast one of those, then we're able to make more treasure tokens. You can tap him and sacrifice a treasure to go target creature. I don't know that I'd use that too often unless I saw something really nasty on the other side of the board, as this is just this is until the end of my next turn, so it's not a permanent goad, so I might use it every once in a while if I'm desperate. The next one is Plundering Barbarian. It's 2 and a red for a 2/2 creature dwarf barbarian. When it enters the battlefield, choose one, smash the chest, destroy target artifact, or pry it open, create a treasure token. Next is Vault Robber. It's 1 and a red for a 1/3 creature dwarf rogue. You could pay 1, tap it, exile a creature card from your graveyard, create a treasure token. This is really handy because there's absolutely positively no recursion in this deck. So if you discard something big and nasty, at least you can get a treasure token back for it and help the rest of the deck get going. Axguard Cavalry, it's 1 and a red for a 2/2 creature dwarf berserker. Tap it, target creature gains haste till the end of the turn. So yet again, another haste enabler. Dwarven Grunt, it's a single red for a 1/1 creature dwarf. It has Mountain Walk. No, I do not have Blood Moon in here. Yes, you could put it in there if you want. Blood Moon is 2 and a red, and it makes all non-basic lands mountains. I thought about putting in here, but I ran out of room. And this is the only creature or card that would really benefit from that. So I don't want somebody smacking me up the head just because I have 1/1 on the board and they got a bunch of other cards out. Or a bunch of other lands that just got turned into mountains. Next is Spark Mage. It's 1 red for a 1/1 creature dwarf wizard. Whenever Spark Mage deals combat damage to a player, you may have Spark Mage deal 1 damage to target creature that player controls. So, if you're able to get that in free, even if not, you could ping off some utility creature, mana dork, whatever. Cool. The main point is that he goes in, he attacks, and he taps. That's what we want our creatures to do, is to tap. Next is Dwarven Blastmaster. It's 1 and a red for a 1/1 creature dwarf. You could pay 2 and a red, tap it, destroy target non-basic land. This is another reason why I didn't put Blood Moon in there, because that turns all mountains into basic, or all non-basics into mountains, so I don't think they're targetable at that point with this. You can morph him for 1 red, but you have to pay 3 first, so that's kind of slow. I'd rather just pay the 2 and bring him out, so the morph's kind of like not a thing here. And the next one is Dwarven Scorcher. It's a single red for a 1/1 creature dwarf. You sacrifice it. Dwarven Scorcher deals 1 damage to target creature unless that creature's controller has Dwarven Scorcher. Deal 2 damage to him or her. Attack before the damage is dealt. Sacrifice it if you want to. The point is, he's cheap, he's attacking, he gets tapped, he makes a treasure token. And for our honorary dwarf, it is Maskwood Nexus. Notably an artifact, so we can go fetch it. It costs 4 for an artifact. Creatures you control are every creature type. The same is true for creature spells you control and creature cards you own that aren't on the battlefield. You could pay 3 and tap it to create a blue shapeshifter creature token with changeling, which just means it's every creature type. The reason we have this in here is we can make everything dwarves, essentially. I mean, they're everything else also. They're slivers, they're werewolves, they're humans, they're shapeshifters. That's an actual creature type. They're everything. But the important thing is they're all also dwarves. And so when I attack with my dragons and my artifact creatures, I'm also attacking with dwarves. And dwarves are tapping to attack. So I get more treasures. Okay. The next category is, did we build it too big? Because these are big. These are some of the cards. These are some of the first cards. Actually, the last one's probably the first one you grab, but I want it to be till the last minute of revealing. The first one here is Sundering Titan. It costs 8 generic for a 7/10 artifact creature golem. When Sundering Titan enters the battlefield or leaves the battlefield, choose a land of each basic land type, then destroy those lands. This is really cool with things like the sneak attack, Porphyros. They come in, destroy a land of every type. He's going to leave at the end of combat, or at the end of the turn, at the end of combat, one or the other. And immediately you're going to get rid of another land from everybody. Or, hopefully at least one from everybody. And yeah, that helps slow everybody down. Next is Triplicate Titan. This is probably one of my favorite cards. I just love the way these ones work. Worm Coil Engine's another one that's up there on my list. No, Worm Coil Engine's not in here. But I like the creatures when they die, they, into little pieces. It costs 9 for a 9/9. It's an artifact creature golem. It has flying, vigilance, and trample. Flampulence. Yes. Flying, trample, and vigilance. Flampulence. That's what I'm calling it. It's my term. If other people can call it Menache, I can call it Flampulence. Anyway. When Triplicate Titan dies, create a 3/3 colors golem artifact creature token with flying, a 3/3 colors artifact golem creature token with vigilance, and a 3/3 colors golem artifact creature with trample. So again, this is a really nice one to use with the sneak attack and the Porphyros. Bring it in, it attacks, hits somebody very hard, and then when it dies, it bursts into 3 little pieces, and then you got those little guys to go pester people with. I've finally done it. I made a deck with the Boogeyman. The one-shot robot, Blightsteel Colossus. He costs 12 for an 11/11 artifact creature golem. He has Trample, Infect, and Indestructible. If Blightsteel Colossus would be put into the graveyard from anywhere, reveal Blightsteel Colossus and shuffle it into owner's library instead. So we get a free shuffle with Sneak Attack or Porphyros. When it is done with that turn. But yeah, so the Infect is just the poison counters, and then Indestructible means that damage is not marked on it, and which just means that lethal damage does not kill it. And then effects like Destroy do not kill it. You can still give it -1/-1, or those sort of things, or Exile. That's why I always like to run Swords of Plowshares. I love that people pay so much for this. Even in this deck, it's a little more trouble to get it out than some other ways. But and then that 1 mana just gone. But hey, at least it goes back into the library, and I can go get it later. That's probably the really best thing about this with that card. It's like if somebody does remove it, like I can just go get it back in a few turns. Like I literally could go search my library for that specific card after getting a few treasures. Speaking of treasures, I named this because I probably will get striked on YouTube if I sing, but I just named this Cha-Ching. This is all my extra ways of making treasures. The first one is Seize the Spoils. It's 2 and a red for a sorcery. As an additional cost to cast this spell, discard a card. Like a counterspell that's not doing anything. Or a Blightsteel Colossus, and then you get to shuffle your library. Anyway, draw 2 cards and create a treasure token. So we're drawing cards and making treasures, doing exactly what we want to do. The next one is Big Score. It's 3 and a red for an instant. As an additional cost to this spell, discard a card. Draw 2 cards, create 2 treasure tokens. Yay! Again, basically the same thing. Unexpected Windfall. It's 2 and a red, or 2 and 2 red for an instant. As additional cost to this spell, discard a card. So yes, we have ways of getting rid of cards that might screw us in a first-hand scenario. Anyway, you draw 2 cards to create 2 treasure tokens. Next is Pirate's Pillage. It's 3 and a red for a sorcery. As an additional cost to this to cast Pirate's Pillage, guess what? Discard a card. Draw 2 cards and create 2 colors treasure tokens with, do what treasure tokens do. All right, we're done with that. Yes. Okay. So the next is Brass's Bounty. This is probably one of the more powerful ones that you got. It's 6 in a red. For each land you control, create a treasure token. So if you're hard casting this, you have at least 6, and you're able to fetch at least one thing right away. You cast it, make the treasures, sack 5 of them, ready to go. This one's, I love this guy. He's just so lovely. Dockside Extortionist. It's 1 in red for a goblin pirate creature. That's a 1/2. When Dockside Extortionist enters the battlefield, create X treasure tokens, where X is the number of artifacts and enchantments your opponents control. This is one of them. He's mostly in here because, like, in those competitive games, a lot of people will be running Manaliths and Mana Crypts and all those super expensive cards, and I get to make treasures off of them. And last, he's probably one of the best cards in the deck. He's super cheap, and he does something super awesome. I'm going to call him Zorn. I think that's how it's pronounced. It's 2 in a red for a 3/2 creature elemental. If you create 1 or more treasure tokens, instead create those tokens plus an additional treasure token. So when we're creating, 2, we're making 3. When we're making 1, we're making 2. This is going to help us just accumulate those treasures so much more faster. And it's going to basically tick off every time we make a treasure. Because once you tap a creature for attacking, boom, that's a treasure. When you tap it for some of the other effects we're going to see here in a second, boom, treasure. Like each individual instance of it. If you for some reason tap a bunch of them at the same time, then it would just trigger once. But as long as you could stagger the triggers or the tapping, you're going to get multiple triggers. And if trigger's the wrong word, then I apologize. Yeah, I just used to the terminology. Oh well. Next category is the Dragon's Nest. These are the dragons that I put into the deck so that we're not just fetching artifact creatures. I decided to go both ways and run artifact creatures and dragons. So what the hey? Some of these aren't too horribly expensive. Some of them are a little bit more expensive. Some of them help gather or make treasures. And some of them are just nasty. First one is Gadrick, the Crown Scourge. He's 2 in a red. For a legendary creature dragon, he's a 5/4. He has flying. He cannot attack unless you control 4 more artifacts. In here, that is really not a problem. At the beginning of your end step, create a treasure token for each non-token creature that died this turn. So again, if we're sneak attacking things, or dwarves are just dying everywhere, that's actually a benefit to us. Yeah, sure, I'll attack you with 3 2/2s and a 1/1. But they're all going to die. Yes, but it'll give me 4 treasures. Either that or you'll take 5. I don't care. Like, it's win-win. Next is Demanding Dragon. He's 3 red for a creature dragon that is a 5/5. When he enters the battlefield, it deals 5 damage to target opponent unless that player sacrifices a creature. This is a lovely one to just sneak attack in or pour frozen. Pay 3 instead, and they're either taking 5 damage or sacking a creature, which they'll probably just take the 5 damage if we're playing the kind of games this is meant to go against. Next is Steel Hellkite. It's 6 for a 5/5 artifact creature dragon. It has flying. And you can pay 2, and it gets +1/+0 until the end of the turn. You can pay X, destroy each non-land permanent with mana value X, whose controller was dealt combat damage by Steel Hellkite this turn. Activate only once each turn. Sort of a mini board wipe there. Next is Kilnmouth Dragon. It's 5 and 2 red for a 5/5 dragon. It has Amplify 3, which just means it enters the battlefield with 3 1/1 counters on it for each dragon card you reveal in your hand as you are casting it. Not really going to amplify this too many times usually. If you are able to, if you're able to even get 1 off of this and make it an 8/8, that's awesome. In any case, it has flying. You can tab it. Killmouth Dragon deals damage equal to the number of 1/1 counters on it to target creature or player. Not really what we're looking for. We're just looking for a big nasty thing in the air. Next is Rapacious Dragon. It's 4 and a red for a creature dragon that is a 3/3. When it enters the battlefield, create 2 treasure tokens. Again, this one's not even a big nasty thing in the air. It's a little nasty thing in the air, but it gives us treasure tokens, so it's in there. It's a little expensive for what it does, so I could just go fetch the bloody thing. Next is Tyrant's Familiar. It's 5 red for a creature dragon that is a 5/5. It has flying and haste. It also has lieutenant ability. As long as you control your commander, Tyrant's Familiar gets +2/+2 and have whenever Tyrant's Familiar attacks, deal 7 damage to target creature defending player controls. So that's going to get rid of most things on the board as far as single creature removal. So just allows those attacks to get through a little bit easier, and it can disrupt some of those stupid competitive decks. I'm looking at you, Shabraz. I really am. That's why I made this deck. Ugh. Anyway. Next is Lathless, Dragon Queen. It's 4 red for a 6/6. Legendary creature dragon. It has flying. Whenever another non-token dragon enters the battlefield under your control, create a 5/5 red dragon creature token with flying. You can pay 1 in a red. Dragons you control get +1/+0 until the end of the turn. This is one of my favorite personal dragons. Just nasty all around. Big dragon makes slightly smaller dragons and makes the whole team just that much bigger. Next is... Oh, we did put him in here. Cool. I thought I didn't put this in here, but I did. I guess I was sort of smart. It's Hellkite Tyrant. It's 4 red for a creature dragon. That's a 5/6. It has flying and trample. Whenever Hellkite Tyrant deals combat damage to a player, gain control of all artifacts that player controls. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 20 or more artifacts, you win the game. Possible with some of the treasure generation we do have in this deck, especially with the one for the lands that we control or whatever it was. The excuse me. Dark Side and Brass's Bounty, these could definitely help get us to that 20 pretty quickly. And the lovely thing about it is that, if I happen to get 25, I can go, okay, I feel like winning at the next upkeep. Ta-da! And our last category is Dancing Dwarves. Why do we call it that? Because they're tapping. Tap dancing. Forget it. So these are just additional ways to get our dwarves to tap. The first one is Prophetic Ravings. It's a single red for an enchantment aura, enchant creature. Enchanted creature has haste, which is awesome, and has tap to discard a card and then draw a card. Next is basically the same thing. It's Epiphany Storm. It's a single red, enchantment aura, enchant creature. Enchanted creature has pay a red, tap, discard a card, draw a card. Costs a little extra mana, but not a big deal. Lightning Prowess, it's 2 and a red for enchantment aura. Enchanted creature has haste, which is awesome, and has tap. This creature does 1 damage to target creature or player. This is essentially the same thing, but on a much bigger scale and not with the haste. Lightning Volley, it's 3 and a red for an instant. Until the end of turn, creatures you control gain. Tap this creature. It deals 1 damage to target creature or player. This is basically the same thing, but more permanent. It's Chiron Negotiations. This was one of my favorite cards from Mercadian Masks. I still use it. This was in my Goblin deck. It's 2 and 2 red for an enchantment. Tap an untapped creature you control. Chiron Negotiations deals 1 damage to target player. Again, just anything we could do to get these little buggers tapped. And then a couple of vehicles just for the heck of it. First one is Smuggler's Copter. It's 2 for a vehicle artifact with flying. Whenever Smuggler's Copter attacks or blocks, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card. Crew is 1. That's the main reason it's in here. I can tap as little as 1 if I need to block something nasty in the sky. It is a 3/3, so it's actually pretty hefty. It's not really a chump blocker, but I can use a chump blocker to block something in the sky. I love it. The next one is Sky Skiff. It's 2 for a 3/2 flyer artifact vehicle. Again, crew just 1. I love that. So we can use this to, again, tap our creatures down or block nasty things in the air. In any case, that's the deck. I've played it a few times. I warned my playgroup what I was going to play. It was the end of the night, one night, and they were like, "Let's just play a real degenerate game." I'm like, "Well, how fast do you want it to go?" Everybody hated me by the end of the night, but we all shook hands and it was all good. I warned them, don't ask that question unless you want the fire. In any case, that's my deck I usually bring to do competitive things with. Sure, could use some help as far as being more competitive. In any case, we have Doctor Who stuff coming out this month, I believe in a couple weeks. I do plan on going over those. I might do deck techs on them. It depends on how much I like them. I'm sure I'm going to love them. I've been a big Doctor Who fan since I was little. I'm not sure if I'm going to finish the Lord of the Rings things. I might. It's just been a little hectic lately. In any case, I guess I'll just do what I will do. I've done a couple of shorts. I think one I just opened a spare pack of Commander Masters I had lying around, and then I did a card I wish was a commander. If you'd like to see more of that sort of thing, let me know. Yeah, I guess that's all for now. So we'll catch you next time, probably with either an upgrade, one of my own decks, or hopefully a lot sooner than Doctor Who comes out, because that's going to be a while. Anyhow, take care. We'll see you next time.